chambers, print your names and talk it clearly, and return the card to our board-assistant Kathy Tompkins. At the appropriate time, I will call you to speak. First, stand for the flag salute. Under the direction of Major Michael Durrell, Venice Middle School color guard. My apologies.
Face, close, march, present, colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carry, colors. Ready, cut. Right, face. Forward, march, left, right.
Thank you, Venice Middle School's color guard. Next, I'd like to introduce and welcome Jessica, our student representative today. Jessica, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, my name is Jessica Gonzalez. I'm a senior currently at Venice High School. I'm student body president of Venice High School, and I'm currently enrolled in the IB program, which is absolutely fantastic. Right now, I'm awaiting applications. I'm hearing back from schools. My number one is Harvard, and I hear back on the 28th. And I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm very excited to represent Venice High School here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us. And as a token of our appreciation, I'd like to present you with a certificate for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And we look forward to hearing about your acceptance.
Thank you.
Moving on to special presentations, today we are showcasing Venice Elementary School and Venice High School. First, we have a state championship recognition for a Venice High School student. I'd like to invite James Clinton, District Athletic Director, to the podium.
We have come together to recognize some amazing athletic accomplishments today by Dan Stone for winning the 2A state championship at the 138-pound class. I want to thank Dr. Bowden and the board for recognizing athletics as an important part of the school process. You know, athletics we like to talk about are not life, but they're a way that we're able to teach life principles. So today we're going to recognize Dan. I want to thank Venice High School, Eric Jackson, Principal at Venice High School, great support, and then also Pete Dombrowski, who's going to come speak for amazing support of athletics for our district and Venice High School. Pete.
Thank you for having us here, and this doesn't get old, and I hope we can be here in a couple of months because the season isn't over. You know, it's funny because every time I go somewhere, people ask us, they say, how come a little town like Venice, you're so good? And you try to think that, and the reason is our coaching staff. It's just consistency. We have consistency within our programs, and it'll show with the gentleman I'm going to introduce tonight. Our coaches are all bought into the school, into the community, and most of all into our student athletes. Gentleman tonight graduated in 1991 from Venice High School, came back in 1995 to work at Venice High School. Decided to be an assistant coach under wrestling under Dan Kelly, who is a Hall of Fame wrestling coach. So When Dan retired 3 years ago, in 2015, it didn't take us long to find a person who would step up and continue to run a great program that we had at Venice High, and that's what we got with Pat Ryan. When he came along, the consistency stayed, he knew the children, he goes back to the community with youth wrestling, so we're really proud, and he shows his hard work tonight when he introduces our student athlete who was our state champ. So I know this gentleman's going to be a Hall of Fame wrestling coach one day, so I'd like to introduce Pat Ryan.
It is my honor and privilege to present Dan Stone here in front of you tonight. Like Pete said, 138-pound champion in the state wrestling finals. He has 144 career wins in just 3 years. 50 of them this year, 30 of them by superior decision and pinning his opponent. Dan is not just successful on the mat. He also has a 4.3 GPA. Almost all, if not all, are honors and AP classes. After he graduates from high school, he's going to go to UCF and major in biology and then eventually get into the medical field. So I can't tell you what a privilege and an honor it is to stand up here next to him. And there you go.
Want us to all stand back there?
Oh, yeah, that's...
Pete?
How about this? I'll stand up. Too big, yes.
Oh.
Thank you.
One more.
The boss.
Are you guys going to go under one person?
Well, yeah, right. Can I get the line then? Oh, you did. Oh, hello.
You get in there.
Oh,
There we go.
You ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Keep them coming.
12 more. How many you were throwing us in here?
Thank you. Good job up there.
Second up for special presentations, I'd like to invite Chris Renoff, Executive Director of Elementary Schools, and Steve Cantis, Executive Director of Secondary Schools, to the podium for a presentation of Venice Elementary School and Venice High School.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Bowden, Mr. Hardy, and Student Representative Ms. Jessica. It is great to be here in Venice to showcase a one-of-a-kind partnership, one that really could be characterized as a true collaboration, one that has already given us immediate results and no doubt lasting benefits to all the students, the staff, and the folks here in our own Venice community. And it basically, what I would refer to as someone from Venice, it takes Venice pride to a whole nother level. So with that, Mr. Steve Cantis.
Again, my pleasure to have the opportunity to introduce the principals of the two schools. One of our greatest resources in Sarasota counties when we talk about mentorships and we talk about supporting other students is actually our high school students. Our high school students work in all of our middle schools and our elementaries and various different programs. But I do believe that Venice High School and Venice Elementary, the big Indians and little Indians, they take it to a whole new level. So you're going to have the opportunity to hear tonight about the collaborative relationships that these schools have put together. So I'm going to, without further ado, I'm going to ask Principal Eric Jackson of Venice High to come on up, and Principal Aaron Del Castillo of Venice Elementary. And I probably shouldn't say this, but soon to be Riverview High School.
Before we get started, I have one of my students who we have at Venice Elementary, we have a Venice Little Indian Pledge. And we think it's truly important for you to see what our students start with in kindergarten, and they follow those grades all the way up to 12th grade. So Emily Brooks. This is what we say every morning.
As a Venice Little Indian, I pledge to always show respect for my fellow beings, be truthful and honest at all times, take responsibility for my actions, do what I know to be true, give kindness and assistance whenever needed.
All right.
Okay.
Good evening, board members, Mr. Hardy, Superintendent Bowden, and Student Representative Jessica Gonzalez. We are here today. Ms. Del Castillo and I have the great fortune of serving our respective schools on Venice Island. And we want to thank you for providing us an opportunity to showcase what we consider to be a very unique and special relationship that has been forged between our two schools. Here on Venice Island, one can quickly feel the small town character and charm that makes living and working here unlike anywhere else. Together, our two schools have worked closely to promote student learning, to coordinate and communicate in times of emergency, and to come together to celebrate a variety of school community achievements. In our presentation to you tonight, we plan to share examples of our strong K-12 relationship that includes academic, operational, and community partnerships. Students from both Venice Elementary and Venice High School will share their experiences with you.
All right, so that's actually Eric and I. We share property, so if you look in the background where the bounce house is, that actually was not for elementary students. They really thought it was. That was for his high school students on, was that senior week?
That was our senior week, yes.
Yep. It's the first time there's been a bounce house so close to my property that didn't involve K-5 students. Okay, so one thing that we have on our campus that we're very proud of is our executive internship program. Ms. Halstein has over 35 interns that come to me between 9 and 11 a.m. every day and work with our teachers. And I have two of my interns here tonight that are going to talk about what they do in the internship program and why they love coming to Venice Elementary. So I have Eric L. Martin and Melina Sanchez.
Hello, I'm Eric L. Martin. I'm currently a senior at Venice High School, and I've been interning at Venice Elementary for 4 years now. I interned in a kindergarten class. Her name is Mrs. Klein. She's a wonderful teacher. Working at Venice has helped me realize that I want to become a teacher, specifically an elementary school teacher. I work with the kids in different areas. We work with reading, math, and arts and crafts usually. Arts and crafts is my favorite thing to do with them, but I love working with the children with disabilities, and I also work with children that are extremely gifted as kindergartners. One little boy I work with has reading disabilities and really struggles with sounding out words and having the motivation to keep trying to read. And I really love helping them sound out the words, and as soon as their face lights up when the word clicks and they can read it and they're so proud of themselves, really confirms that I want to become a teacher and makes me very proud to want to be a teacher. I'll be attending Florida Atlantic University this summer, majoring in elementary education, and I can't thank Venice enough for all the experience.
Hello, my name is Melina Sanchez, and I have been an intern at Venice Elementary for almost a year now. Honestly, I wanted to talk about the reason I took this internship at all. For me, it's not just about teaching the kids. I believe education is important. It's a step to progress and career opportunities. But I feel like making a connection is the most important thing there is with the kid. I want to be a special person for them. I want to be the kind of person I needed when I was a little girl. And I know some of my kids also struggle in class, and I feel as though they come to me and they're so crushed and disappointed in themselves. And I think that's something that's really pushed by colleges and curriculums, that we are only our test scores and nothing else. And I want to tell them that they're not defined by their report cards or their grades. They're defined by the kind of person that they want to be. And I have worked with kids since I was, at least in elementary as well. I've worked with kids in the nursery at my local church, and I've taught kids in Sunday school. And seeing them turn to me and say they want to grow up and be an artist just like me is one of the best feelings in the world. There's a little girl, she moved out of our class, but the last day we spent together before she moved was us drawing together. And she was teaching me how to draw. And she said she wanted to grow up to be like me. And to me, that was probably the best thing Venice Elementary could ever give me. Thank you.
This is a good one. Wow, I'm telling you how inspiring that is. And I know that these young students in this internship program are making a difference in the lives of those elementary students. But you know, we have a shortage of teachers, so we hope that, you know, both of you will go into the educational endeavor, but that you will come back to Sarasota and work with us here, because we think we're a very special place. And a lot of people, I can remember when I was in college, did I want to go back home? Not really. But we think this is a really special place. But thank you for those inspiring words and for the difference that you're making in the lives of those children, because they really would love to be around people that are young like you and inspire them to do great things. So thank you so much for that effort.
At Venice High School, we are very fortunate to have an established, strong working partnership with the ACE Mentor Program of America Incorporated. The program's mission is to engage, excite, and to enlighten high school students to pursue careers in architecture, engineering, and construction. By working with real professionals in real working environments, ACE students receive an invaluable hands-on education. They learn by understanding the day-to-day workings of a business by living and experiencing it. ACE uses working professionals to support students who are pursuing the following vocations: architects, interior designers, landscape architects, mechanical engineers, structural engineers, electrical engineers, environmental engineers, civil engineers, construction managers, and college and university representatives. What we want to talk about today is how this ACE program has, in many ways, helped to take a group of students who have received mentoring and how they've carried it forward to the elementary level. Ms. Del will speak to that next.
So we have our annual STEM fair, and Mrs. Warfield, who is my science lab teacher, took it over this year, and it was engineering. We focused on engineering. And I talked to Mr. Shannon, who is the head engineering teacher over at Venice High, and said, can you give me some of your students who would be willing to help us judge? I thought I'd get 5 or 6. I got 30. And they all came over, and what was amazing is we had a lot of community members. I had Ray Wilson from Laurel come, I had Karen Schmidt from Venice Middle come, just to kind of, Mr. Jackson came, his admin team came, just to kind of give the kids an idea of people they may see in the future. And the conversations that came out of these presentations were phenomenal. And I wish I could have bottled them up, because I have 3 that are going to come up to you right now. They'd like to introduce themselves, but I have 3 Venice High students that have been in engineering for 3 years. 3 years, okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Amanda Barrett. This is Sam Tyson Nickdayudo. We are honored to speak on behalf of the Venice High engineering program. It was an amazing opportunity to go to the elementary school, praise and enhance the kids' knowledge about their work. I remember doing science fair when I was their age. It was honorable and amazing to discover the things that I can learn about the world. I believe that making an engineering fair is even more important. By introducing these kids to engineering aspects at a young age, they begin to develop a passion towards it. These kids are the future, and they should be introduced into this world early so they can continue to develop that passion as they approach high school. As a high schooler myself, I wish I had that opportunity when I was younger. By going to the elementary school and observing their projects, I realized what incredible ideas that these kids have. I hope that they continue to nurture these ideas as they continue to move on. From creating home improvement objects and constructing solar panels, these are the brightest and most creative kids I've seen.
This past fall, we had a wonderful opportunity to visit Venice Elementary Engineering Fair. Our class took part in multiple volunteering roles, while Nick and myself judged multiple projects and gave feedback to students Amanda was able to work with the team that tied up scoring sheets to determine project winners. After finishing our assigned tasks, we had a wonderful opportunity to interact one-on-one with these students. This time was very important because we were able to determine how the majority of these students came up with their wonderful creative project ideas. It was a great time also to be able to connect and work with these students. While we were there were a plethora of projects on display. One project in particular made an impression upon my peers and self. The project was an automatic pill dispenser that was designed by a team of 2 girls. This project was incredibly important because they had designed this to be able to work with their grandparents because they were no longer able to decide and determine what pills to take and when to take them. Although the project did not become a winning project, it was still very impressive because of its sheer complexity and the hard work they put in to create it. This was the most prominent and notable project idea that comes to mind. As you can see from this example, many of these incredibly talented students at Venice Elementary will make valuable additions to Venice High's engineering program very soon.
As a Venice High School student, we reflect the principles of the ACE program onto the kids by mentoring them. It truly was an eye-opening experience to have the opportunity to work and connect with the new generation of future engineering students. Not only do we want to establish a relationship between the Venice High School STEM students with our neighboring elementary STEM students, we hope to inspire these kids to continue their paths with STEM, starting with the engineering program at our school when they arrive. And one last thing, we would like to thank Mr. Jackson for inviting us to speak with you. Thank you.
The safety of our students is of the utmost importance to both of us. Our schools have worked very closely, particularly over the past 2 years, to establish a well-coordinated level of cooperation and communication. This has served both schools very well during emergency events. Ms. Del Castillo will speak to our joint efforts to ensure safety and security among the 2 campuses, as well as to provide timely communication to our stakeholders.
So over the last year, Mr. Jackson and myself view ourselves, even though we're 2 separate campuses, we consider ourselves a joint campus. So in that, we have had communication in times of water line breakage. We've had communications in the event of a real evacuation or any lockdowns. 3 separate admin team meetings that we've had with the Venice Fire Department as well as the Venice Police Department. We work on our critical incident plans together because if we're evacuating, we're not talking about 2,000 students, we're talking about 2,000 high school students along with 600 elementary students. We conducted 2 lockdown drills together. The picture that you have up is actually the last lockdown. That's how much Venice Police Department and Venice Fire Department support us. They all came to both our lockdown drills back to back. We actually created a phone tree list for emergencies, so that way if there is an issue on the island, we know immediately and we know who to contact. And we have coordinated communication for all island schools during crisis events, so Ms. Marble from SLA is part of those as well. We are looking at August 8th when the teachers come back as an active shooter training for Venice L and Venice High. We want the staffs to be together. We want to start working together and collaborating together, along with Venice PD and Venice Fire Department. And then we also do common remind communications. So if a communication about safety or security goes home to Venice High, it automatically goes to Venice Elementary as well.
Venice collaboration across all levels. Articulation and alignment among educational levels is essential for the continued growth and success of our students. The transition between school levels must be met with teamwork and strong lines of communication among administrators, teachers, and support staff. I am pleased to report that the lines of communication among Venice-based schools across all levels have never been stronger. As a means of strengthening our K-12 articulation, Venice school leaders come together periodically to collaborate and properly plan. It has been an opportunity for school leaders to share best practices, to promote innovative programs and initiatives, and effectively support our students. Recently, our Venice High School administrative team met with middle and elementary school principals to begin planning for the transition of incoming students from one level to the next. Meetings of this nature serve as a terrific opportunity for school leaders and key personnel to discuss and better understand the academic and behavioral histories and needs of our students. It also allows each school to develop a personalized plan that best supports a transition to the next level of education. A second example of our efforts to establish vertical articulation has been through the sharing of weekly newsletters. At Venice High School, we share our weekly staff newsletter with our feeder schools as a means of maintaining timely information related to the high school experience. Contained in the Venice High School newsletter is information related to significant academic events and achievements, operational measures taken to ensure a safe and secure learning environment, and an overview of weekly school community events that take place on our campus. We make the effort to establish such strong lines of articulation and communication so that it translates into a highly positive and productive school experience for our students. One such great example of this would be our very own Jessica Gonzalez, who I'd love to have speak to the wonderful things that she's experienced over her 4 years at Venice High School.
Hello, my name is Jessica Gonzalez, if you don't already know. I have been in public school for about 5 years now. I started at Venice Middle School in 8th grade, and it was kind of difficult for me to transition into high school because I was not used to public school yet. I have been at Epiphany Cathedral School for the majority of my time, and so it was difficult for me, but right when I got into Venice Middle School, they asked, would you like to be in accelerated courses? And my mom looked at me and said, would you like to be in accelerated courses? And I said yes. And so going into high school, I took honors courses, and they didn't push me as much as I needed to be pushed. And I felt stifled. I felt like I couldn't find a place for myself on Venice High School campus. And amazingly, I pushed past that, and I talked to the administrators. I talked to Mr. Lineweber when he was still at Venice High School, and he told me that I should join IB. And right when I joined IB, my life completely changed from that point on. I was able to make connections with my peers and learn in ways that I previously hadn't. I was able to engage with my teachers on a much more personal level that previously I hadn't, because I didn't have that push or the connection beforehand. So I think that it starts early, just like when I was in middle school and they pushed me to do accelerated courses. It starts early, but continuing that acceleration and continuing on that path and encouraging students to find passions, find classes that they can engage in and that they can love to learn in. Because that's truly where you get a good high school experience from. It makes a difference from an okay high school experience to a fantastic high school experience. And I'm so grateful that I'm on Venice High School and that I get to work with Principal Jackson as student body president, and all the opportunities that are at Venice High School are unbelievable. And I mean, even our student government works with the Venice L student government, and it really does start from a young age, and continuing that growth throughout all of the schools and pushing you even when you may not think that you want to be pushed. So, thank you so much.
Okay, so another collaboration we have, I'm going to ask Drew Stryker to come up. He's going to be up here through 2 slides, but one tradition that we have is once a year the Venice High football team comes on a Friday, and they become my patrols for the morning. Coach Peacock comes with them, and I'm going to have Drew kind of talk about his experience.
Good evening. My name is Drew Strike, and the experience that we have with the elementary school kids is once in a lifetime, knowing that you get to make their mornings and you get to take them to class when they don't want to be, some of them don't want to be at school in the first place. And brightening their day, making their week is something that is close to our hearts, and for high school students to do that to elementary school kids, it means a lot. And not only does it help the kids, but it helps their parents. Because the kids get to go home happy, they don't have to go home sad. And for us to get back to them, as most of Venice High School football students go to Venice L, and so growing up, they've had that same opportunity, having high school kids come down and take them to class, brighten their day. It means a lot. And to leave that school that morning after taking the class and holding hands, giving as many high fives as possible, it really brightens their day, and we know we did something good that day. So.
And then I'm also also going to invite Brooke Wheatley to come on up. We have our Walk of Fame, so whenever a Venice High School athletic team makes it to a state championship, it is a tradition at our school, and both Drew and Brooke have been Venice Elementary Little Indians that have gone through this tradition, and now they've been Venice High, Big Indians, going through it as a state champion or a possible state champion. And the signs that you see in the pictures are actually ones that went with them to their state finals. Every single one of my children signed those signs. Every single one of my staff members signs those signs, and we displayed them everywhere.
Hi, my name is Brooke Wheatley. I started my education at Venice Elementary. It was the best school I could have gone to. Venice L was a big support to VHS sports. I used to go to football games as a kid, and all my friends would be there with me playing in the end zone during the games. While I was at Venice L as a student, I really enjoyed going outside and shaking all the hands of the players who were headed to a state championship. I especially liked it when my dad and his teams came through. During elementary school is when I realized my dream of playing for my dad at Venice High School and wanting to win a state championship. This year, my dream came true. This was my second year on varsity, but my first year to ever play in a state championship. As soon as we won the Final Four at Venice High, I was thrilled to think we could be in the Indian Walk at Venice L. When I walked through, I got to see all my teachers there, and all the students were holding up signs and cheering for us as we walked by. It was definitely one of the highlights of the season for me. I think this is one of the coolest traditions around. It is very unique to have a high school right next door to an elementary school, and it's awesome to witness how they support each other in so many ways. It was a privilege for me to be a student at both schools.
So I wrote a little something. Imagine this, you walk down in the day, imagine this, you work day in and day out as an athlete, putting strain on your body and making time for your academics. When you show up to practice and you see a sign that says, prove them wrong, weekly green. As a 220-pound senior in high school, I'm not going to lie, I started to tear up. The unique relationship that Venice High School has with Venice Elementary is simply irreplaceable. There are many events in which we are able to brighten the mornings as well. During season, varsity football players try to be positive role models for the elementary school students by walking in the class on certain mornings and handing out as many high fives as possible. In turn, they support us under the bright lights on Friday nights. As we departed to the state championship, one special stop to our youngest and most enthusiastic fans, the Little Indians. This truly solidified our goals of bringing a state championship trophy back to our community. Through their thoughtfulness, through posters, praises, and overall encouragement, they never stopped believing, even when the odds weren't in our favor. Internally, they made us feel like superheroes.
What a fantastic opportunity that you all have being on the same campus together. I mean, and the students is just phenomenal. You have a fantastic speaking voice. And so I was listening to you and I thought, oh my God, if I could only speak half as well as you. That's fantastic. I mean, I'm so happy for all of you, the students that have attended the school, and both of you for doing such a great job. And I know as principals that you feel rewarded when you see these students come up here and when you see them at home and when you see them interacting with the younger students, which I think is phenomenal, because that gives the younger ones a reason to want to go to high school, because they see the positive connectivity. So I'm just really happy that you are here today and that you have such a program. This is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Well, wait, there's more.
Okay, so on top of the interns, I have two volunteers that are going to come up and talk about their experience. I have Ruby Modford and Zoe Ring. And my volunteers do everything from creating signs for PBS. Ruby is a brilliant artist, to working booths at Powell, to helping in the classrooms, creating Friday folders. We have been a 5-star award for the state ever since it started. I'm competing against Bay Haven right now, and a big part of that is our high school, and it really is a joint partnership because these students get hours that they can use for bright futures.
Hi, my name is Zoe Ring, and I'm a freshman at Venice High School. This is my first year volunteering at Venice Elementary School, and I'm working in Mrs. Banks' second grade class. Mrs. Banks was my first and second grade teacher, and I love seeing her and helping her in any way that I can. Usually, I assist the kids with anything they need help on and prepare projects for them. The most rewarding part about volunteering is spending time with kids and learning from them. When I walk over from Venice High School, I pass the playground and get to see my second graders running to the fence with big smiles on their faces, excited to see me. That really just brightens my day to know I'm investing in these second graders' education. I'm so thankful for Venice Elementary and the opportunity to work with these amazing kids and teachers.
Hello, my name is Ruby Mockford. I am currently a senior at Venice High School and I've been a part of the Early Childhood program for 3 years. Last year I interned at Venice Elementary School while becoming DCF certified. This year I'm a level 4 intern and work at the elementary school every day of the school week. On a day-to-day basis, I am in the classroom with Miss Young's first grade gifted class. Apart from that, I get to use my creativity when I paint signs for Venice Elementary's special occasions, such as their fall festival, winter carnival, kindergarten roundup, and annual gala. Volunteering at Venice Elementary School has made a huge impact on my life. Before I came to realize how much I love working with children, I dreamed of becoming a dermatologist. But working hands-on at VES has turned my attention towards education, and I've come to realize that the enjoyment I receive from being with kids can't be found anywhere else. Working with the first grade gifted class is truly a rewarding experience. When I work with children, I observe how eager they are to learn, how excited they are to expand their knowledge, and how much they depend on their teachers. Recently, I was given the chance to work side by side with my former teacher from 2nd and 3rd grade. I took part in helping her current students, along with younger students, construct a project. I was able to serve as a role model to other students while working side by side with my former teacher in the colleague role. I am proud to say Venice Elementary School has given me the honor of being Youth Volunteer of the Year for all of my hard work and dedication I put into their school. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my experiences at Venice Elementary School this evening. It was an honor.
And then another collaboration that we have, we're almost there, is our Veterans Day celebration. So this past year, we invited our first responders as well as our veterans, and we allow anyone in the Venice Elementary community to come in, have breakfast. My students did a big sign with handprints as a flag. And one thing that we decided to do this year that we changed up was to pair with the Venice High ROTC program, and they presented the flag for us. And it was a very unique moment for everybody. Usually we have our veterans do it, but we wanted them to have a chance to see the up-and-coming ROTC students.
In closing, the partnership that has been established by our schools is quite unique and special. Just as special as this wonderfully supportive community here in Venice. Ms. Del Castillo and I are quite proud of what our schools have accomplished together over the past 2 years. Our accomplishments have been predicated on strong lines of communication, ongoing vertical articulation, and strong community spirit. Together, our schools will continue to support one another and work closely together so that our students receive a high-quality education and a very positive experience that they will always remember. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you. And there are a couple people who are ready to make some comments, so I'll start with Ms. Cook.
Well, I just want to thank you for your leadership. Both of you are excellent leaders, and of course, Erin is going on to Riverview High School, and my grandson is in school, and Eric, you're doing such a fantastic job at Venice High. The words and compliments that I hear in the community are numerous, and it's all exemplary of someone who communicates well and listens to the community. You have made and been a model principal in terms of collaboration with other schools, charter and public alike in the community. And I think that makes a big difference because we're all in this about students. And I love your special curriculum that you do your special, what do you call it?
VHS Connects.
That's it, VHS Connects. See, I was not getting there, but I was just not finding the right word. But I love what you're doing with that because I think that gives students a chance to catch their breath and to do something different that very often we don't have the opportunity of doing in high school. So I think the idea of science fair projects, that's something that we need to look at in other schools because I think this would be a wonderful model to use for other students. And the fact that we have this internship and these potential teachers and students who are seeing how wonderful it is to be in the classroom. I'm a teacher just by life. I've always kind of been a teacher, at least in my own head, whether I was teaching or not. But I just think it is something you're born with, and I think it's something that we need to develop. And we do have critical shortages of teachers. So you all are doing a great service to Sarasota County Schools, and you're doing a great service to this community. This is a very, very special community. To all the young people who have spoken to us, thank you for all of the hard work that you've done. Thank you for your volunteer work, which will pay off in many, many ways. But thank you for presenting tonight. It's so wonderful to hear all of you. Mr. Appleton.
It reminds me of a cartoon that I used to watch when I was a little kid about Justice League. And in the Justice League, they had these superheroes called the Wonder Twins. And each one was a superhero, but when they put them together, they became even a bigger superhero. So I kind of think of you two guys as like the Wonder Twins. That separately, you guys are superheroes, but when you guys, are together, you guys, the impact you have is amazing. I just got to call you out one thing, President Gonzalez. I cannot believe that Gina left it up to you for whether you were going to take honors or not. I do not believe that's a true statement.
I swear, Brian.
She was talking about volunteers. Ruby, Monica, I didn't realize you were a volunteer of the year. You should have told me that. I think that's great. She comes from royalty too. Her older sister was president of the Venice High senior class when she was a senior. And she comes from a really good family. And our athletes, people don't understand, they're state champs, but if you look at their academics, their grades, it's not just enough that they're state champs on the field. Our athletes, especially at Venice, are champions off the field in the classroom. So that's really important too. So thank you guys, and keep up the good work, and way to go Wonder Twins.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really think this is a testament to Venice is such a unique and special community, and I think that you guys have done a tremendous job in, channeling that passion and really bringing it to the education level. And you can see it when you walk around this town and when you put a parade, and there's just a love and energy, whether you're a student or not, that they're the backbone of this community. So I appreciate everything you're doing, and thank you for the presentation.
So maybe the Wonder Twins were before my time. So
no.
What happens when you split up the Wonder Twins? Do they regenerate and get a new pair? And so your challenge as you go to Riverview High School is certainly Philippine. It's not that far away, or Wilkinson, and you're going to have to find a new twin, I guess.
We'll work on it.
We can still swim.
I'll see two members.
Hey, right on. Well, I just want to thank you both for your leadership, and I look forward to you and your new role.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mrs. Letter. I know I spoke once, but what I heard here tonight was pride. Pride in every one of the students that came before us. Pride and ownership. When young lady said, my second graders. I mean, that was just touched me because that's how they all feel. They all feel responsible and love for each other, and that's phenomenal. And that's something really special. Thank you, because it had to come from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is the superintendent's report.
I was prepared to forego the superintendent's report until I noticed that we have some scouts in the audience, and I would certainly be remiss if I didn't recognize our scouts. We are a scouting family, and I know what scouting does for the boys in this community. And so I wanted to recognize your attendance here. I specifically want to recognize the adults. Scouting doesn't work without adult volunteers, but I want to thank you for what not only you're doing for your own children, but for the boys in this community. So from me to you, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have the hearing of citizens. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. When the timer flashes yellow, 1 minute remains, and you need to begin to summarize. You must stop speaking when the buzzer rings. Please note that respect for divergent viewpoints and civility will be shown at every board meeting. Whether you agree or disagree with the speaker, you should listen politely and respectfully without making any sounds of approval or disapproval, including clapping. First up is Carol Lerner.
Good evening. Protect Our Public Schools Minnesota, which I'm going to call POPS, we call it POPS for short, was formed nearly a year ago to fight school privatization while simultaneously working for high-quality public education for all. Following the tragic shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, it became obvious that public education cannot be protected without its students being protected. So we actually expanded our mission. As chair of POPS, I am asking the Sarasota County School Board to join with the Pinellas County School Board in supporting a ban on assault weapons. Linda Lerner, no relation to me, that's my last name, a veteran Pinellas School Board member, introduced the motion saying, quote, "If there ever was a time for elected school board members to take a stand, it's now. It's not anti-gun, it's anti-massacre." The motion passed 6-1, and I believe it was sent to every school district in Florida, I was told. POPS supports common sense school hardening and security measures to protect students. Those measures will be ineffectual and risk turning schools into fortresses without comprehensive background checks and removing the weapons of war. We should follow the lead of just about every other nation, including the UK, Australia, Canada, and even Russia, and ban assault weapons, period. This should not be a partisan issue. Studies have demonstrated a direct correlation between the number of guns available and the number of gun-related deaths and injuries. Australia, following a horrendous mass shooting in 1996, banned the purchase of assault weapons, bought back existing weapons, and instituted strict background checks, all within weeks of the tragedy. There has not been one mass shooting since these laws were enacted. Allowing school support staff to be armed, as the Florida Legislature's school marshal program includes, I know it's now not classroom teachers, but support staff, is the opposite direction of where we as a school community should be heading. Other than armed resource officers, there should be no guns allowed on any school campus in Sarasota, and I feel in Florida. When the students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School appeared before the Florida State Legislature, they demonstrated profiles in courage, while many of our legislators demonstrated profiles in cowardice. We should honor those brave student survivors by following their lead, and I have two motions that I would like the board to consider. Could I read them? They're very brief. They're one sentence each. The Sarasota County School Board supports a ban on assault weapons and encourages the other school boards in Florida and around the county to do the same. That's the exact language of the Pinellas motion. And then secondly, we hope that you will adopt the following. The Sarasota County School Board is opposed to the arming of any school staff or any other person from the community other than certified school resource officers. And thank you for extending the time. I appreciate it.
Next up I have Rana Bazin. Can you pronounce your name for me? I don't know if I read it correctly.
I'm sorry?
Can you pronounce your name for me? I don't know if I
Oh, it's Rana Bazini. Don't worry, even my father mispronounced it. Superintendent Bowden, members of the board, and our wonderful students. You may have noticed that I've been attending school board meetings for a while. I wish more people were capable of doing this and had the time. I've gained a greater appreciation for what you are doing and how complicated your job is. Anyone who takes this challenge must really be idealistic with a strong sense of service. At times, I'm sure your job seems thankless and frustrating. However, you did choose it. And don't worry, contrary to a vicious rumor, I am not planning to run for the school board. In a previous presentation, I mentioned the purpose of our group, POPS, Protect Our Public Schools. We believe in a free, quality public education is the right for all children. A wonderful demonstration were these marvelous students that spoke today. They are a prime example of a quality public education. Recent moves by the legislature in Tallahassee have threatened our public schools by furthering their privatization and diminishing the role of our public schools. The House and Senate bills are headed toward Governor Scott for approval. We strongly object to these bills, and we have urged Governor Scott to veto them. Having been a teacher, I vigorously support a ban on assault-type weapons. I would not have liked to have been armed, nor would I have liked any of my cohorts to be carrying weapons. We don't deny that there are problems in our schools, but the philosophy behind these bills offer the wrong answer to the right question. If we truly believe that all students deserve an equal opportunity to a good education, does it not make sense to work within an established structure which includes all students rather than spin off satellite structures that serve only a few? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Bear Mancini. Good to see you.
2 foot taller than the last time I was here.
Yeah. Good evening, school board members. My name is Bear Mancini, and I'm in 8th grade at Pineview School. I had originally planned to attend this board meeting to inquire on the new science textbooks in the schools. But then Parkland happened. You sent out requests for opinions about school security. At Pineview, we have a new electronically locking fence. It looks impressive, and it's definitely making it more complicated to get into the school in the morning. But I'm not here to debate whether the fence was necessary. That has already been decided. Pineview School will be secured by electronically locking perimeter fencing. The problem I see is the impressive front fencing doesn't go all the way around. The back fence is not at all up to the same standard. It is meager and unable to deter anyone. I, who have cerebral palsy, can scale the back fence, and there are no plans to improve it. Why? Because the back section of Pineview, where the woods, track, and tennis courts are, is owned and operated by Sarasota Parks and Recreation. It's a public park, and they won't lock their gates. This means Pineview may lock the fence in front, but the back fence remains unlocked. And when we leave at night or for the weekend, the front fence is again locked, but the back fence remains unlocked and open. Anyone can come into our campus to say, for example, walk their dog, which would leave poop behind that we find Monday morning. They could leave food that attracts rats and other critters onto campus, cigarettes, beer bottles, and drug paraphernalia, and other unacceptable trash on our campus. And if they did have the intent to do so, they would have all weekend to map out our campus, stow any weapons, leave an explosive device, or find a place to hide and wait for us to arrive. It's time to lock the back gate. What good is a fence that locks out the moms in the front and lets a creepy stranger sneak in through the back? Please make the commitment to finish what you've started. Give us an effective fence that protects us on all sides. Stop strangers from sneaking into Pineview. And when we leave each day, let's lock the doors behind us. All of them. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Barbara Logan.
Dr. Bowden, school board members, and honored student, thank you for letting me appear. I'm a retired teacher. I think I've taught in 5 school districts over my career. I've even been in a lockdown school district in Wisconsin. We were locked down from 3rd period through the beyond the end of school. If you go back into that school now, it is hard to get into. You go into a lobby and there is a person in an enclosed office with a little slit, and you give your driver's license and identify you and so forth, and they check you over, you sign in, they ring, if you pass, they call a hall monitor that unlocks the door and let you in, and so forth. So we learned from that experience. Of course, school doors you have to be able to get out of school doors for in case of fires and so forth. But they had monitors there because people can come up to a school door, and if a student knows them, they might open it on some back hall. And so they had a alarm to them if they got opened, and immediately they could see who was going in and so forth. Our schools need to be protected, and the young man from Pineview made a wonderful speech about the fences and so forth around schools. But I, as a teacher, was horrified when they talked about arming school employees. I just, and I'm sure there'd have to be people that would agree to do it, but young people could so easily overpower somebody with a gun. And in another type of shooting situation, a staff person might really miss the killer and kill one of the innocent students. And that, we all, whether we're a teacher, a teacher's aide, a hall monitor, a security person driving around, we build a rapport with students in the schools. We're there because we love students and we love working with them. Even custodians get a good rapport with students. You do not need a burden of injuring a child or killing a child or having a child paralyzed by a gun, by a bullet that you fire. We need to get, if we're going to have people with guns on school, they need to be people who are police type of people on school, not school employees. And please make our schools safe for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Ben Nicholson.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is my first school board meeting. It's such an honor to be able to finally speak here. I came down here to have a difficult conversation, but one that definitely needs to be had. I've been going to Pineview since 2nd grade, and recently something has changed. Now, every time we're walking in between our classes, we're not thinking about how to protect our homework, but how to protect our lives. Whenever a fire alarm goes off, every student is asking if it's the last sound that they'll ever hear. I want to make sure that finally the voice of the student, which has been ignored for so long, is finally heard. Before the shootings of Stoneman Douglas and Parkland, it was the students who gave the warning cries and warned everyone of what could possibly happen. I think it's time that we stop letting those voices go silent. We stop letting those voices being ignored, and it's time that we finally listen. Now, more than ever, when we have our conversation about American safety, we have to make sure that not a single voice is left out. And yet the legislature in Tallahassee has suggested not giving voices to students, but arms to school staff. despite the fact that keeping a gun within a house threatens not only its residents, but everyone around it. Despite the fact that only a few armed teachers can never have prevented any of these tragedies. Despite the fact that giving more guns to schools to stop guns in schools could just never possibly work. If we want effective change, we need more than quick fix gun policy. We need to listen to the policies such as POPs to make sure that we have effective things which can keep our schools safe. We need to make sure that we have proper oversight over social media so that a single threat isn't taken lightly, and we make sure that nothing that could have been prevented ever happens again. We need to make sure there are clear boundaries around schools, to make sure that guns that students, teachers, and even strangers can bring in stay out, and our students stay safe. I want to make sure that students have resources so they can articulate their concerns to, and to make sure that none of their voices ever go silent ever again. And most importantly, I want to make sure that every single one of us, no matter where we stand, make sure we stand for keeping the guns out of the hands of criminals, making sure that we keep the tools of death out of the hands of killers. I want to be the voice of the student who has suffered, the student who has fought, the student who has been silent for so long. I want to be the voice of the student who has turned away time and time again. All I'm asking is that you listen. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have for hearing of citizens. Are there any items or corrections to the agenda?
Yes, we have an addendum to item 6, the approval of instructional classified personnel report. It will be labeled as addendum 1, and it's an addition.
Thank you. As a reminder, we don't have our computers, so we'll go old school here with the verbal.
I move for approval of the additions and corrections as presented. Do we have a motion for that?
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the amended consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes 4-0, 1 absent. Moving on to new business, item number 42, approval of the 2017, 2018, and 2018, 2019 instructional and classified bargaining agreements. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the 2017, 2018, and 2018, 2019 instructional and classified bargaining agreements.
Any motion, do I have a second? Second. Motion is second. Any comments? Mr. Robinson?
Since we haven't had an executive session, we haven't had a workshop on this, I'm just curious, how much is this going to cost over the 2 years, this motion?
So the agreement that was reached with SCTA, which was ratified by 97% of both bargaining units, we received notification late this afternoon. The year one cost of implementing that salary agreement is $11,442,442.48. The year two implementation is $10,316,017.21. We project that the 2017-18 fund reserve at the end of the year will be between 9.5 and 10%, beneath the 10% threshold of Florida law. In 17-18, excuse me, at the end of the 18-19 school year, without any other changes to the budget, would have the ending fund balance between 7.5 and 8%, above board policy of 7.5.
Thank you.
I think that there's a lot of elements that we're excited about, and we're really focused on recruiting, retaining highly effective educators, and I know a lot of that comes down to salary. I'm pleased about certain improvements that we've done with the third-party negotiator. I think it brought forward some elements that had not been raised before, and I think it was incredibly valuable. I think there's still some processes as far as communication that perhaps we could have, I know there's strategy part of it, but being aware and having a meeting a little bit more regularly to understand better so where we are today. I know we have a lot of questions before us as it relates to the budget on a number of items that we never could have foreseen coming at that time. So that's a responsibility that we have to consider at all times. We don't know what the unexpected is. So I look forward to continuing to improve upon the process, but I did want to do that. Mrs. Goodwin.
I'd just like to say that I am very pleased, and I think the teachers that I have spoken with and the other classified workers, which include bus drivers and secretarial staff, cafeteria workers, and other people that fall under the classified agreement, have all expressed to me that they are very pleased with this agreement. And we realize that it's becoming more and more challenging to find staff, that there's hardly any people in this county now that are unemployed. So this gives us a leg up, I think. We play very well with Charlotte and Manatee County. We do not go and attempt to steal their teachers. That was a recent rumor that was mentioned to someone, and we do not do that. But we certainly are starting our teachers at a higher salary, and we certainly have enjoyed the benefits of making sure that our people employed by Sarasota County Schools, which is either the #1 or #2 employer in the county, are earning a decent wage. And how that affects our community is the quality of life, because people buy more pizza, they have their hair done more often, they do all those things that benefit our community. So I just want to say that I, for one, am glad that we resolved it. It took some time, but I think we are on the right track, and I'm really happy that we've done this.
Thank you, Mrs. Becker.
Hello, Ms. Mike. I'm very pleased that we settled this contract. It was a struggle. It wasn't something that happened easy. It took us several months. We did obtain many of the items that we have been trying to change in our contract for a long time. And I think there was plenty of give and take on both sides. And when you walk away from a contract and you're not totally happy with what you did, that means you did the right thing. So I feel that we did the right thing, and I'm very happy that we have finally reached an agreement with our unions.
Thank you. Any more comments? A motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. The motion passes 4-0, 1 absent. Moving on to item 43. Do I have a motion?
I move for approval of the 2017-2018 salary schedules for both the bargaining unit and the non-bargaining unit as presented.
A motion and a second.
Second.
Any comments? Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, I'm curious. I remember last year when I did this was like, just got on the board, and I remember there being like F and G and, you know, these different levels for administrators, and I didn't see that attached to mine. Did I miss that, or will that be voted on later, or how is that done?
So you are referring to the administrative salary schedule. They are enumerated in columns A through I. There's also a separate administrative salary schedule. There is no action before you today on administrative salaries. The item that is in front of you applies the terms of the collective bargaining agreement to our salary schedules for represented employees. It also extends the terms of that settlement to a small group of hourly employees who are not represented by the union. We refer to those as exempt employees. They are typically found in human resources or in what we call exempt 9X positions, which are our principals, secretaries. There are about 60 of them district-wide. But the ABC that you're talking about are our district-level administrators, and that's not part of the item for you today.
So if I continue, so when you mentioned the $22 million previously, that includes this motion, these people too, but it doesn't include the administrators? I'm just trying to understand.
That is correct.
So the $22 million is 4243, but it doesn't include. So if those people end up getting raises, it would be at a higher amount.
Correct. You can anticipate an item on your March 22nd board agenda, a salary package for administrators that would be costed out at about $1 million per year. The percentages that I quoted to you, 9.5% to 10% this year, and 7.5% to 8% next year, does contemplate a raise to administrators in approximately the same range that was extended to our represented employees.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So for clarification, the unreserved fund balance percentage that you gave us for 18-19 and 17-18, 18-19 were roughly 9.5 and 7.5 to 8. And so that is inclusive of a projected administrative raise.
That is correct.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, item number 43, the approval of 17-18 salary schedule for both bargaining unit and non-bargaining unit, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 4-0 with one absent. Moving to 44. Do I have a motion?
I would move that the revised procedures pertaining to equity complaints be approved as presented.
Motion is, do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Any comments? I'll add one. I'm very pleased that we're moving ahead with our policy review, this being one at the top of the list. So thank you for all the hard work that's been put into place, and there will be many more moving forward. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The chair votes aye. The motion passes 4-0, one absent. Item number 45, I have a motion.
I move for approval of the adoption of instructional material for science, grade 6 through 12 as presented.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Do I have any comments? Seeing none, please vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The chair votes aye. And then motion passes 4-0, one absent. Moving to 46.
I move that the board approves to advertise the revisions to the school board policy 3.95.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Do we have the notes for charter school? Do we actually have? Can you read the motion? Hold on a second. We should be reading the actual. This is. Hold on one second. This is it. Approval to advertise revisions to school board policy 3.90. That's what I said. Okay. Sorry.
And that is the charter school policy.
Correct. That's what I wanted to clarify.
Twice.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 4-0, one absence. Item number 47, do I have a motion?
Approval to change the March 20th, 2018 regular school board meeting and work session to March 22nd, 2018 as presented.
Second. Motion and second. Any comments? Mr.
I'm
Ross?
just going to say, as I said before, it'd be nice if we changed from April 17th to April 19th. I'm just putting it out there, but I'll still vote for this motion.
Well, I think that
I didn't know it was an option that we could change days, so I'll for Tuesday.
you're on the board and we vote on the reorganization.
I agree.
So,
I agree. I just thought it was kind of set that we do things on Tuesday. I didn't realize this precedent, but I'm going to vote for it.
well, for the public standpoint, this is being moved because of March 20th being our referendum vote. And I know we do also have a November school board meeting date, which is also falls on the general election, so perhaps for consideration that meeting, but not for today's action. So I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? All those in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Chair votes aye, and the motion passes 4-0, one absent. Item number 48, do I have a motion?
That the lease proposal for the Hewlett Packard Company be approved for award and purchase with a not-to-exceed value of $11 million and grant the chair authorization to execute final lease documents.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Motion is second. Any comments? Mr. Robinson?
I had some questions and concerns about this when I was able to talk to our director of IT, and he, believe it or not, was able to alleviate my concerns, which is not an easy thing, but it's not. But Joe Binswanger, he stepped up to the plate and he was able to answer all my questions, so I just want to give a shout out to Joe Binswanger and say thank you.
Any other comments? I pulled this item And two, anything with a larger than usual sticker price is something that just because I move into new business, as I say, doesn't mean I'm going to be voting it down. But I think it afforded us an opportunity to have a detailed discussion, which one thing that I will say is Joe is on top of a very large department, a very important department, and so it's important that he was able to support all of the questions that I had. And as we move forward again with some of the conversations we had previously all around the state that we're having capital discussions on, as we reevaluate our security measures, making sure we are proactively looking at every area. But I am confident in his abilities and decision making. So unless there are any other comments or any presentations, okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion passes 4-0.
Good job.
Just board comments?
Well, I'd just like to say that we had the referendum on March the 20th, and early voting will start on Saturday for 8 days. For those of you who are not doing vote by mail, please vote early. I used to say vote early, vote often, but I just say vote early. And know that March 20th will be here very, very soon. Early voting is 8 days. It runs Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 3 locations: the Supervisor of Elections office in Sarasota, in Venice, and in Northport. I think there have been already about 22,000 vote by mail ballots that have been returned. So it's an exciting time, and we'll be happy to bring this up.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes, I want to talk to Dr. Bowden. At the last workshop, we got a presentation about the iReady, and you and I discussed this, and it was pretty much flat, and we had put goals on you to exceed flat. And so I'm curious, do you need something from the board? Is there anything that you need from us to help you achieve your goals by the end of the year? Is there anything holding you back? Is there any policies constraining you? Any reassignment of resources to the budget? Is there anything you need from us to help you do your job?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you asking the question. It's a question that I too have asked of staff. We've identified a number of schools, specifically the 5 schools under the direct jurisdiction of the school district that have a C grade. We also have identified a number of our B schools, which are very close to that threshold of being a C. And at the beginning of the semester, we went to them and asked the identical question, and we were able to allocate resources within the district, within our current allocations. So as we sit here today on the 6th of March, I am comfortable that we are reaching our performance objectives as a district. I believe we have the resources in place to meet our goals, not only as a district, but individually as your superintendent. But I do so appreciate the offer.
Well, if that changes and you need something from the board, please don't hesitate to bring it back to us.
Yes, sir.
Sooner rather than later. Yes, sir.
Follow up on that question. When is the renewal for iReady?
It's actually a 2-tiered renewal. The first one will come before you end of April, early May.
Okay, thank you. Were there any other comments? Dr. Bowden?
I wanted to go after board comments, so I want to cut that short, but I do have an item that...
Yes, I know, yeah, I'm aware that you have that. So before we move back to do the comments? Okay. And I just wanted to, I wasn't able to be here at the last board meeting as I was up in Tallahassee with Dr. Rachel Shelley as we addressed the school safety issue after the tragedy in Parkland. And a lot have taken place in those 2 weeks since then, and I want to applaud all of the members of staff for working their rear ends off, many who are here today over the weekend and late hours, and I'm really proud of the work we did. I'm glad we were able to convene very quickly and take an opportunity when we were up in Tallahassee to come together about some of the elements that we believe make sense. But as I even said, I know we talked about there, is we can share those ideas, but let's focus on what we can do within our constraints locally, and I think we have a lot of strength intellectual capital to do so. So I'm really impressed with what took place and the hard work, and it was not lost on me. And I wanted to again commend everyone for being all in. I also wanted to reference the National School Walkout, because I know that was another part of the discussion getting in front of it. And I have been moved by the amount of students who have reached out and tried to focus on their voice being heard and them being a part of the solution and discussion. I think we had a couple of gentlemen speak today to that. And as this is an ongoing discussion, and I believe right after this, after I'm done yammering away, we will be going more into depth about different processes that we can do as a board. But one thing that my biggest takeaway as we review these tragedies, what happens is complacency. And so whatever we can do as a community, not just take votes up here and put budget priorities and et cetera, but from every single person who plays a role in this. And so my hats off to the students who are coming and speaking, but I also implore you to bring that message locally to your schools and to your peers to play a role as well, because we cannot do it without you. So with that, I will hand over to Dr. Gordon.
So that we are not speaking in code, just for the education of the audience, state law allows 3 exemptions to the Sunshine Law in which a board can conduct its business in private. One of those is collective bargaining. The second relates to pending lawsuits. And the third is the area of safety and security. And the rationale behind that is that you don't want to lay bare your security plans as much as you want to be transparent with your community. There are also bad guys out there, and you don't want to talk about what your layers of defense of a school campus might be. I say that because the conversation that we're about to engage on piggybacks on an executive session that preceded today's school board meeting. And in that meeting, we discussed the physical standards for our school campuses, a conversation that obviously we're not going to repeat publicly, but talked about a standard for all of our campuses. We have school campuses that are newly constructed, and the campuses that we build today are dramatically different than our school campuses constructed 20 years ago. And wide open spaces were the norm for school construction. It's what we aspired to for our school buildings. In that discussion, we talked about applying a modern security standard to all of our campuses. So whether you use the term retrofit or hardening, there are a number of our campuses that I won't discuss by name publicly that need attention by way of capital improvement. In that executive session, we priced those changes at $25 million. What the exemption to Sunshine does not allow is for us to discuss budget numbers. And so the conversation that I would now like to engage the board in is that we have priced $25 million in capital improvements to bring all of our school campuses to a modern security standard. I'd like to invite Mr. Limpy to come forward. He's done the lion's share of the work on a 5-year capital plan. The challenge to Mr. Limpy was to take our 5-year capital plan, the very deliberate process of which that plan is developed, and then to say, if it were the will of this board, to implement a capital improvement plan at $25 million in year 1 with the idea that we would bring all of our campuses up to that standard. What impact might it have on our capital plans? And so the document that you have in front of you, I apologize, this is an off-agenda topic, but our board assistant also has copies of that packet for members of the audience that wish to follow along with the conversation. And so with that introduction and a repeated caution that I ask that we not discuss the security standards specifically or any one school campus, but to talk about how we might fund the collective effort. I turn the table over to Mr. Lynn.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Bowden. I guess let me start with this. There are really 2 things that we need to talk about. One is financially how we get it done, and then second is how practically we get it done. And so in your packet is some documentation that will help us talk about both of those. Dr. Bowden used the number 25 million. That is how we priced, how do we get from where we are today to having that standard in all of our schools. And so one of the things we did then is said, can we do that in year one and still present the board with a balanced 5-year capital plan? And the answer to that question is yes. And so I think the very first document that's in the handouts that you have right now is a picture of a 5-year plan that is balanced, that includes the addition of about $22 million to the security department's budget that would get the lines that are essentially fencing and single point visitor access control to $25 million to allow us to fund that work. And then if you look at the column all the way out to the right of that 5-year plan, anywhere that we've made a change to pay for that $22 million plus up, you'll see what's impacted and how it's impacted. And generally, what you're going to see in this capital budget is 3 categories of things. There are areas where we have said we have a recurring expense and we'll forego that recurring expense for a year, 18-19. An example is bus purchases. And typically we allocate about $3 million a year to the purchase of buses. You'll see in 18-19 we've taken that line to something like $800,000, a $3 million savings, or a $3 million reduction in the amount of money we'd spend on buses. That $3 million would then be part of how we would fund this addition to the Safety and Security Department. What's unique about those kinds of actions is we're not putting that money back. You're not going to find $3 million additional dollars somewhere down the road in year 3 or 4 or 5. We're going to forego the purchase of buses for 1 year. What that means is your fleet's going to age a little bit from where it is today. The second kind of actions that you're going to see in this budget is places where we have taken a project and left it funded the way it is, but pushed it to the right 1 or 2 years in some cases to free up the dollars in year 1 that otherwise would have been spent on that kind of project. And then third and finally, you're going to see some projects that start off with the word add. Those are projects that, had we been having a typical conversation about our CIP, this would have been the things that we would have been advocating to add in the CIP this year. As we reviewed the kinds of projects we had, we thought that they were significant enough to keep them in the 5-year plan. So that's essentially the 3 kinds of notes. And we can go through this at any level of detail you like. I could go through each one. If you have particular ones you'd like to talk about, we could do it that way. But I draw your attention to the column all the way to the right of this 5-year plan that's labeled notes at the top of the page. And so, for example, on the first page of the budget, you'll see my reference to transportation and reducing the amount of money that we spend on transportation. And by the way, the first part of this budget really is department budget, so you're going to see impacts in the departments, not on individual projects up front. So that you turn the page, you're going to see some savings or some reduction for 1 year in the amount of money that we spend on capital planning. We have backed away for a year on our upgrade to PE restrooms. We've backed away on the amount of money that we will spend on small projects. And that's one that I'm going to come back to, because the third of the 3 attachments, I think, that is in your package identifies the small projects that we would have funded with that money. So we're not saying we're not going to do those projects. We're saying we're not going to do them this year. We would push those projects into the 19-20 year. But just be aware that there's a number of projects we've already had conversations with principals about that we wouldn't do in the summer of 2018 if you adopted this 5-year plan. If you continue down, you can see that there are some specific things within the facilities budget that we have said that we can forego for a year. Those things include playgrounds, LED lighting, covered walkways. Covered walkways typically is the addition of covered walkways in places where we'd like to have them and don't today. Normally you find that at parent pickup loops and bus loops. And then we pushed the rubberized track project that we added last year to the right a year as well. Inside safety and security, that's the next department you see. That's largely plus up. And you'll see the 2 places where we've got $11 million each to get to the $22 million increase.
Question?
Please.
I know I'm skipping over to technology just because of, and we're reading this one for time,
right.
And I appreciate it for time sensitive, so I understand that. It says on the very bottom of page, I'm under technology. So, decreased funding 17, 18, and 18, 19 will not impact current service standards. Is that classroom instructional technologies?
It is. And so largely, I don't know if Mr. Binsweiger's still here, but he had some input into this when we talked about how could the instructional technology, how could the information technology department play in this exercise. This is the line that we use to do things like refresh the active technology in each of our classrooms. That project is essentially done today. It came in less expensive than we initially thought it was going to be, and so Joe's take on this was, this is not going to help me move forward any faster than I am today, but it's sure not going to move me backward. And so that's why we said no impact on service levels.
Okay, so Eric and Joe.
I have a couple questions. So the first one is it the design build ones that you sign off and approve that Todd used to? So, and those are for a number of years. Are you going to be cutting that money too?
Well, so you're mixing a bit of apples and oranges.
I'm mixing capital dollars.
Well, but design build is a tool that you use to execute work. So there aren't dollars necessarily associated with design build. It's a way that we get work done.
But there's a threshold.
But there's a threshold here. I don't want to see us cutting stuff and then seeing you, feel like the projects that you determine or Dr. Bowman determines are important, they end up getting funded. I want to be able to see everything.
And if I may, yeah.
Yes, I want to see for the next 5 years all the different projects you're contemplating. If I'm going to make decisions, I want to make decisions not on just this pot. I want to make decisions on the entire pot.
So two things.
It's not fair to these schools that we are cutting.
So two things I'll share with you. The other attachments in your packet talk about the projects that we would suspend for a year to be able to free up dollars in year one to do this. One of them is a color-coded packet, and be careful when you look at that, by the way, because there's both red and orange, and they're awful close together. But it's the red projects that we would say, that's for 18-19, and those are projects that have been assigned to a design-build firm already. So we would sit down with them, and we can talk about that in a minute, but we would say to them, we're going to suspend the work associated with this project you've already been assigned, but know that there's $25 million worth of work to do this summer associated with safety and security.
But you answered my question.
Did we already let those contracts?
Yes. Yes. And so if you look at that color-coded attachment, you're going to see, I think the first 2 pages are contracts that have already been assigned to a design-build firm. The third page are projects that we plan to do this summer that have yet to be assigned. So the red ones are the ones we would say we would defer for a year.
In May of 2017, we kind of gave you guys a threshold. I think it was like $30 million. Are you guys going to agree to cut that $30 million over the next 3 years? Are you guys going to agree to make that 15 instead of 30 for the next 3 years? Are you just willing to cut that threshold or not?
So I go back to Mr. Libby's comment that those contracts are a mechanism for doing the work. So certainly we did not contemplate a $25 million program under safety and security. There may come a time that when we reach those contractual maximums that we come back to the board and ask for those caps to be extended. That is not something that can be done by staff, but we would return to you. But the capital projects, the amount of money spent on capital projects doesn't change. We are changing the type of work that we are doing, and we're changing the years in which. So it is hard to project. I know what you're asking, but it's hard to project that. But when we exceed those caps, it will only be with board approval.
So can you talk about, I see on the last page that you've added some major projects.
We have.
That the addition of these projects would actually pay for the single point of entry, that pays $11 million. So comes to thought is, well, if you didn't add these projects, you wouldn't have to change anything for the single point of entry, the $11 million. So can you walk me through why you added the $11 million of projects on the second page?
Sure.
On the last page?
You bet. So if we could roll our planning process back maybe 4 months, maybe even more than that, to October, and we started talking about what the next 5-year CIP ought to look like, before we had any conversation about accelerating safety and security, the general planning process. So as we went through that planning process, we said, what are the projects that we would bring to you on our typical CIP conversation and say, these are new projects that we want to add for this 5-year plan. We went through that planning process prior to any conversation about safety and security. So we had projects out there, we said, these are things that we need to advocate that the board add in our CIP. One of them, for example, is there's $3.5 million at Northport High School to replace their chiller plant. So as Dr. Bowden asked us to go through the exercise of finding where can you free up money, we would evaluate those projects and say, does it make sense to delay the chiller plant at Northport High School? And staff landed on the answer to that question is no. If you have a major chiller plant failure at a high school in August, that's not a place where we want to be. So we said that that's one of those projects that we're going to put in the budget and continue to advocate, even in the face of recognizing we're trying to fund safety.
And Bay Haven Building 4?
Bay Haven Building 4, yeah. That's an air conditioning project largely too. It's in the historic building. We feel that that's a pretty time-sensitive project because part of what's happening in that building is the stucco that's on the inside of the walls is beginning to fall off. It's creating air quality problems with our teachers and our kids, and just frankly, air quality is one of those things that we don't mess around with. And so we feel if we don't get in front of it, we're going to have problems that are going to cost us more than the project.
I'll continue my question.
Okay, Mrs. Bevan. We talked at one point about doing a refresh program on a 5-year program instead of a 4 as we had done before. But we're not. We're still doing 4 years. How much does that save us?
We're still on 4 years. And so if you remember, we had gone initially, if you go way back to the beginning of the refresh program, we talked about a 3-year program. We couldn't afford that, went to 4. During the economic downturn, we pushed it out to 5 and then brought it back. This plan does not mess with that. The 4-year refresh stays in place.
But does that save us any money? Is that...
What would save you money is if you pushed it to 5 because you'd be refreshing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
If we went from 4 back to 5, what is the savings? I can't remember now.
I don't know if Joe is still in the room. It's math I haven't done, but if you took
It looks like it's $246,000.
just in it's about $11 million a year. I think. I think it's $11 million a year roughly. So if you just kind of do the simple math, 11 million times 4 is 44 million. If you then divided that number by 5, the difference is essentially
$3 million.
Well, I'm just saying it might be something. I mean, does it hurt us a great deal to go? I've asked this question before. I thought before that we should have stayed at 5. And I kept saying, well, why don't we stay at 5 instead of going back to 4? If somebody can tell me that that's a big plus.
And I can share some anecdotes with you, I guess, because IT was part of operations when we went from 4 to 5 and then back. Anecdotally, I can tell you that technology advances so fast that by the time a classroom teacher's device is 4 years old, I can remember being in Josh Mockerman's class at Riverview High School one day, and he had a 5-year-old laptop. And as he was talking to me about it, he referred to it as his school board paperweight. He said, this just doesn't do anything for me anymore, given how far technology is coming 5 years. So that's the challenge. It's certainly an option. It's certainly something we could do, but I think that does have an impact in the classroom as that technology uses.
Okay. Mrs. Becker.
Are there any other options available to us besides just nickel and diming it to get us to the $25 million? Is there another way that we can get to this? I know that our debt services, we still have money, we still have the ability to borrow. Would that be something we'd be willing to look at? Because then you wouldn't have to do all this. You'd be able to keep your projects going, and you'd be able to do the safety and security stuff too. My concern is that we're going to fall behind in the upkeep of our schools. And I've seen that happen in other parts of the state when that happens. When the buildings are painted, and the carpeting isn't repaired, and the air conditioning is left on another year. I've seen that happen, and I don't want that to happen here. I'm very proud of the fact that here we've been able to keep up and keep current and keep ahead of the curve. So I'm looking for other ways in order to fund this $25 million rather than, again, nickel and diming it.
So one of the things that we tried really hard to not do, and I guess maybe the possible exception is a school bus replacement, but we tried not, remember when you have 5 capital goals, one of those goals is asset preservation. So what we tried not to do is impact things that negatively affected asset preservation. So in fact, the example that Dr. Bowden and I used as we were talking about this a week ago was if you have a leaky roof, you're not going to fix the roof because you're spending all your money on safety and security. So if you look specifically at the facilities department budget, and the detail is in here for you, the places where we've impacted them is things like we have some money every year that we spend on LED retrofits. We're going to delay doing that for a year. That's not going to impact asset preservation. It's going to impact your energy budget a little bit because because LEDs are cheaper, but, so we tried to go, I understand what you're saying exactly, and I agree with you, and we've worked really hard to say we're not going to impact your asset preservation goal.
But you also, there are projects that are underway now that have been in the pipe and moved back several times. And I'll use one, probably a sore spot, but Pineview is one. That has been a campus that's desperately in need of upgrade.
So what we moved, the Pineview project that is going on now, that is working on water intrusion and HVAC renovation, that project itself isn't affected. And in fact, we talked about Brentwood, Pineview, and Venice Middle School as your big projects. We would continue to move those on their normal schedule. What changes most significantly at Pineview is there is a classroom wing in the budget that in your 18-19 CIP would have come into year 1. This budget has it moving out to year 3 as the initial of a 2-year fund in year 4. But the project at Pineview today that is about, one of the students talked about safety and security. That's an ongoing part of that project. That's not affected by these changes.
So I think the central part of this question is we go through a very deliberate 5-year capital planning process. We have an increased sense of urgency around safety and security. And so we've essentially delivered to you a $25 million project that wasn't contemplated 5 years ago and made its way into year 1 of our capital plan. And so is there a way to accommodate a $25 million program without impacting the 5-year capital plan? And so the options that would be available to you would not be to borrow or to finance the safety and security program because it impacts a number of campuses across the district. So it would not be a candidate for financing or any sort of modern lease agreement. There are other projects within the capital plan that you might contemplate that. So the idea that you could borrow $25 million for the safety and security program, no. Could you borrow $25 million? Could you borrow $20 million at Pineview? Certainly. Could you borrow money to construct the elementary school? Are there opportunities to use financing to increase the capacity of the capital budget? Certainly there are some things that we could put before you if that were the will of the board. We felt an obligation as staff to show you what a 5-year capital plan would look like without doing so. But if it were the will of the board for us to explore some of those, we certainly can do that.
Does anybody else have any interest in doing this?
I do. I would like to look at potential for borrowing money to do some of those projects. Pineview in particular has me concerned because they have been out for a while, and I sure hope that we are going to do as much as we can about fencing the back part of that campus, because that certainly is something we need to look at.
Again, in this plan that's presented to you today, the only thing that's risked relative to Pineview, the only thing that's impacted relative to Pineview is the classroom wing. The classroom wing is a $20 million wedge that we've moved to the right. I'm sorry?
Gotcha. 2 years.
And you're going to go to your project too, remember?
Yes. Those show classroom wing was moved, yes.
Surprise, surprise. I don't want to go out and borrow money because it's not free money. It's not found money. That means we're going to have to pay the money back, which means that for the next 30 years, we may be behind in our facilities. We may have paint falling off our walls. I don't want to have us be like other districts because we're not able to spend money on the facilities in the future because we're spending all of our money on debt service. I personally agree that we should do the $25 million. I just got hit with this, CIP tonight. I wish we would have gotten it sooner. So I'm not opposed to us spending the $25 million. I'm just not sure the right balance and right makeup and what the impact is going to have on student achievement. I like to be able to. I don't know if this helps you. I'm supportive of spending $25 million. I just the roadmap in which we get there, and I need to understand the ramifications that it's going to have on our schools, what it's going to have on our students, and so I'm not sure if I can today commit to how we get there, but I'm confident that we will get there, but I'm not ready now to say how we get there, but I'm ready now to say that I agree we should spend the $25 million for making sure our schools are
Ma'am?
Yeah, go ahead.
And that really, when you talk about what are we trying to accomplish tonight, I understand we're talking literally about hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's not as simple as moving it from one column to the next, that we're impacting students on a variety of campuses. And I too want to echo the chair in regards to the work that staff has done to get us to this point. We're not asking for a motion to implement this plan tonight. We understand it's been in front of you for a matter of moments. The direction we need from you is what options do you want us to consider when we reconvene on March 22nd in a workshop. In the next 2 weeks, we would like to continue planning the $25 million safety and security project to determine our capacity and keep that going forward. Although there would not be any expenditure of funds during that period, there would be an expenditure of significant time and effort on behalf of the staff. So your comments are very well taken of saying we need to do the $25 million project, but we need to continue to explore the mechanism of how we pay for it. That tells me it is worth investing the staff time to continue to develop those projects while we continue to look at how do we fit it into our capital plan. And that's really the direction we need before we leave here tonight, is do we continue to work towards implementing the items we discussed in the executive session.
Well, so a couple things. Again, this is not, you guys work on the CIP for months, and and I really appreciate you finding a way to not ask us to borrow money. I don't take it lightly that we have to move projects, but I also think it also allows you to sharpen your pencils and look at, is it a must-have or is it a can-we-have component? I know, and you mentioned our priorities that we discussed, I think, when we kind of redid the way in which we did the CIP, we had 5 main priorities. Asset preservation was one, and security was definitely one of them. Not to be redundant, but it's disappointing that it takes a tragedy like this to fast track this, but we need to act. So I'm very impressed with the work that's been done. I know we haven't had much time to absorb it. I too had some major concerns, and we have to balance the fact that we can't identify the locations to compromise any security deficiencies publicly, and so this will be in the matter of a line item of basically $25 million on the CIP as it relates to security. I know I've said this already, but I want to make sure, as it pertains to our small projects and the design-build contracts and capacities and just all, that we be very mindful and transparent with the board as to how that works and not be compromising any of those facility or locations. But we are one of 67 counties, and we're not the only state that's going through this as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of moving parts to that. And so that is one thing I will say publicly that I cannot stress enough, that every single thing has to be very clearly marked and tracked and clearly articulated and to work. I personally, if we can find a way to do this, which you have showed the 25,000, I know that's one of 4 potential topics.
25 million.
25 million, excuse me. Just zero. Sorry. But if we can try to achieve this and you are comfortable with this from the facility and capital improvement plan in delaying certain projects and such, I don't want to see us borrow money. I think we're going to be faced with some additional very challenging discussions as we move ahead beyond just the capital infrastructure. So while you may want to explore it, I'm of the mind that if we can do it as presented, then I would like to see that.
Well, I really would like to see us move forward with the safety and security plan. It's important that we take care of our students. We are committed to doing that, I think, as a board. And we know how important it is, and we need to make every effort to make sure that our school district, our children, and our staff are safe. And then I would like to pursue, options that might, at some point, include borrowing some money. I mean, we have been so prudent and careful about borrowing, and have really been good stewards of our money, and so that's always a proper thing to do. We'll see what the legislature comes up with the bill that was being debated this afternoon in the House, and if it passed, and what that means for us, and so forth and so on, which may play a part in some of the things that we do as well. But probably not a big part, because the dollars just won't be there, I don't think. So I would really like for us to go forward with this, and I also would like at some point in time to look at options if, in fact, we were to decide to borrow some money. That's fine.
I would like us to move forward with the plan as it is, but I'd also like us to look for options, other ways that we might fund it. When we look at our debt services, what happened to us is we have very low debt services, and as a result, we were killed by the legislature for being good stewards of our money, because we have to pay more money to our charter schools than another county does that has a higher debt ratio than we do. So we have been very good stewards. So I don't see, if there is a way that we could find an option other than delaying any of our projects and moving forward with the current CIP that we have, I would be happy and more than happy to review it and look at it. I'm open to all of your suggestions and your ideas. I trust you, so that what you bring to me I know will be accurate. So I thank you very much, and I thank staff for all of your input and the hard work that you put into it. So thank you all. I was remiss in not saying that before. But I think there are other ways to go about this, and I'd like us to look into it.
I know, and I'll be cautious that we're going with this, but one thing that I said is if we're going to commit to this investment in infrastructure capital, that there be the wraparound and the human capital component, because this means nothing if we don't follow up with a number of other items. So, and I don't know who's watching. It's one piece of a multifaceted puzzle. So, I think that's an important statement, and I do understand as the budget process goes forward, that's going to change there's going to be some longer winded discussions as it relates to priorities as well. So, but Dr. Buddy, you have any questions?
Before you conclude, there are two other documents in your packet. As opposed to going through those line by line, if you could just orient us to the documents and talk about their content, and so that we kind of get a jump start on the conversation on the 22nd, but allows for them to kind of use that to deliberate between now and then.
Sure. And so the two documents talk about, in different ways, ongoing or committed projects. So the first one kind of has color codes on the right, looks like that. This document includes projects that right now, today, we already have board approval to do, we had planned to execute largely in summer of 18. The color code is kind of staff's recommendation on, do we delay them a year, do we proceed with them, or are they safety and security related, so we would continue to do them. And that's what the color code means. So probably the most significant color is red. All the way on the left, you can see we've identified, if it's assigned to a design build firm, who the CM on that team is. So for example, at the top of page 1, it says Core, Gilbane, Half Acre, Swift, Magnum MES. So that's who the work has been assigned to. And if it's red, our plan would be to sit down with all of our design build firms as a group, because I agree with the chair, being transparent about this is really important. And so we would sit down with them as a group, say, we're all partners, we're in this together. Here are some projects that have been assigned to you that we want to delay a year and replace the effort, replace the work, replace the revenue with a security-related project. But what this document essentially does is lay out those projects that were intended to be done in 18-19, summer of 18 primarily, and our recommendation as to whether they should proceed or not.
So I understand what you're saying. My question I've asked this before, I think it relates to the 8 pre-selected design build firms, how you determine who gets which project. And it typically is on their area of expertise and their familiarity of the site. Would that be the case in this circumstance if we're saying, hey, we aren't going to do this project now, we're going to do a security-related project. What if the one, I mean, it's not looking at any one firm, just saying, what if it's not their area of expertise?
Well, so depending on what comes out of tonight's conversation, we have scheduled a meeting with the 8 firms on Thursday. And I think that conversation would be about a couple of things. Number one, kind of letting them know where this conversation landed, but having a conversation with them about what their firm's capacity is. As I said to you earlier, the school board isn't the only game in town, so they're doing, all these firms are doing work for other customers. And so talk to them about what is your capacity, and then being thoughtful about how we distribute the work in the fairest way possible, so that each of those firms would feel like they got their fair share of the work.
Fair share, there's just I just want to make sure.
The fair share is always the way we do this. I mean, one of the things that's a measure is inside construction services. We have a pie chart that we look at and update as we go through the 3-year relationship with these firms. And one of the things that we look at when we assign work is everybody about equal? I mean, that's been direction from the board for years, that if we have 6 or 8 firms, distribute that work as equally as possible. You're never perfect, but we always make the effort, and that's what we would do here too.
I also just want to emphasize that this isn't just a financial consideration. This is about the capacity of the organization. You know, we have 3 project managers in construction. We have a director of construction. We have, how many facilities of building?
6.
6. It is all hands on deck, and so we don't want them to pull them off to do these projects if we're going to say safety and security is our #1 objective. We need to dedicate all of that capacity to this program, and then we're still going to be stressful.
You bet.
Well, and that's again, if you go back to the drawing board and you look at whether it makes sense under the design build function or different ones, I don't want us to only look at it that way. I think that limits us to potential capacity increase. I mean, this is a very different animal that we're looking at than we have in our typical quote-unquote small projects. So what I don't want to back us into the corner of, and now I recognize we've already committed to contracts that we're basically saying stop, and
those contracts give us an opportunity to get out to a certain notice.
And okay, so
I know we can do that.
And all of these are, I mean, we have good relationships with all these partners, but what I don't want is us to limit to the design build aspect to some of these items. I know I've said this, but it's really important I share that, because I think if we are narrow thinking, we could miss opportunities for skills.
One of the reasons we use design build, and that's been the case since the beginning of design build, is it allows you to do things expeditiously. So if we said, for example, Northport High School is probably going to be one of the most expensive, just because, and I'm not giving away any secrets, everybody knows that Northport High is pretty wide open. So you said, if we're going to fence that entire campus, or we're going to renovate the front office, that's going to be a pretty good sized project. So say that project bumps $1.5 million. Another way you could get there is we could go through the PSSC process like you would building a new school. That probably has a 120-day lead time on the front end of it to be able to identify the firm. So if we want to have these projects assigned and underway, if not completed this summer, the PSSC process becomes the bureaucracy that prevents you from doing that, whereas design build lets you pull the trigger.
I think I was thinking more not so much specified location, but more project specific, and I don't need to get into what specific tasks those are, but let's just say fencing, for example, we have, let's say, whatever that may be, does the project have to be specified to a site, or can it be a district-wide initiative based on whatever the...
Sure, and that's where the engagement of our staff is important, is that each of these 8 design build firms will have a very unique focus on the projects that they've been assigned, but we'll understand the local nature that not only are you engaged in this project, there are other firms engaged in similar projects, and to identify where we can coordinate and generate efficiencies to make that operate.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just taking you to the final document, so the last one, at the very top of it, it's labeled CPT project request, so this is the final document in your read ahead. What this is a list of the projects that, as part of our CPT process, we have essentially said to the schools, this has risen above our cut line in terms of funding. These are all projects that we plan to do this summer. This is in part a financial decision because there's about $700,000 committed to these projects. But to Dr. Bode's point, much more important than the money in the case of CPT is we need the internal capacity, need both the internal capacity to be able to oversee the projects, but the very design build firms that are doing these projects would be the ones that we would look to help us with our safety and security efforts. So, and again, we're not canceling those projects, delaying them for a year, but that gets us both the money, the capacity internally, and the capacity of our design build firms.
So what do you want us to do as chapter with tab 7? You just want us to read it?
I just want you to be aware of if the board said tonight we support this and we like this 5-year CIP as a way to get there, this is the impact. These are projects that if we decided tonight to do these are projects we would not execute in summer of 18. We would look to start them in summer of 19.
As requiring a formal action is what I'm understanding, or is this kind of?
These are different. This is.
Well, I'm trying to read. I gotta read it. So for clarity, one, thanks for bringing this to us now. I know we were kind of concerned about that, but I also know that to make the 22nd a more productive conversation. But just for clarity, this is being presented to us as a read ahead for the 22nd for you to get a sense of the direction to move. There's no formal action. We're not adopting a CIP. We're not canceling projects per se, but we may be.
Well, there are a couple things that I've heard from the board that you want us to continue to develop for the $25 million safety and security capital program. Things that will happen by week's end. Number one, we are going to gather our 8 design build partners, make sure we have a clear understanding of what their capacity is. As much as we think that they're at our beck and call, they have other projects going on. And so some may beg off, and others may say, we'll take as much work as you can give us. And so we're going to gather those groups Thursday, tentatively. Also, I feel I have an obligation to communicate with our principals our line of thought as it stands here today. Specifically on those projects, they were very competitive. They were vetted by the CPT. And to tell them that as it stands now, that although we had made a commitment to do those projects this summer, that the increased urgency on safety and security means that currently we're going to table those projects. I feel an obligation to have that communication with our principals tomorrow so that they understand this isn't a final decision, but we reached out to them and said, we're going to do this on your campus, and we need to say that may not happen. And quite honestly, you're likely to hear from PTA groups in which they said, you know, we'll go in halves on a project, and we're now saying we can't do our half. And so I don't want you to be surprised by some incoming phone calls that you get that, quite honestly, we made some commitments, but conditions have changed, and we may not be able to honor our commitments. And that's not always a great position to be in, but we just want to be very transparent about where we're at and what it's going to take to get this done.
Before you end, just so I'm clear, if we're going to have a conversation about this on the 22nd, other than what you have in front of you right now, what can we bring you that will help with that dialogue? It sounds like one of the things I think we could bring is at least an analysis of our debt service, so you can see that.
Yes.
You'll be pleased with what you see, but you can at least see kind of what your headroom is and when the current debt pays off, what the debt payments are. Other than that, is there anything else other than what you have in front of you that you would like us to prepare for the 22nd conversation?
Is there a desire for us to quantify? The only other note that I took was the 4 versus 5-year horizon.
Yes.
To put a number to that, and then understand the applications of it.
Yes.
And to continue on Mr. Lippy's point, is to talk about the various financing options that might be available to us. All of those come with some costs, so that you understand that sometimes it costs as much to borrow $20 million as it costs to borrow $100 million, because a lot of those costs are up front. So some of those different mechanisms, we can quantify those for you, just so you have as much information as you need to make some decisions.
I just want an update on the meeting on Thursday. I think it's out.
I just want to have conversations before the 22nd
Yeah.
to get some understanding and having it on the 22nd.
Absolutely.
And
Individually for.
yeah, I was speaking with
You bet.
Mrs. Zeba when she returns, and you, hopefully.
You bet. Happy to.
But thank you. I know this was, again, sure, everything's been fast-tracked. This was over 6 months. It's been done in a matter of days. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate you coming forward with solutions, not just only requesting.
So before we close, I want to just totally complete the
Happy
this
birthday.
topic. No, not that.
Everyone, it's Dr. Buddy's birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday,
Dr. Bo.
Dr. Bo's birthday.
You can thank me for that.
Man, you just want to get attention, Dr. Bowden.
I have my wife and kids here waiting to take me out to dinner, so,
Castellanos.
Every place around here closes early.
I can get you a good restaurant. Venice has great restaurants.
Can I please brag on the basketball team at Booker High School?
Yes.
Before we adjourn?
Yes.
They have qualified for the Final Four. And so we may have some Booker tornadoes in front of us by the time we reconvene on the 22nd. The state semifinals are tomorrow night in Lakeland. It's my understanding that if they win, they're back to back, so they go back the following night? Thursday night for the state finals. When they win. So, boys basketball, the Booker Tornadoes, we wish them well as they head off to the Final Four.
Very good. I have 3 comments. Referendum vote March 20th. I know Mrs. Goodwin already mentioned the beginning of early voting, which is and next monthly work session, March 22nd at 8:30 a.m. Next and regular board meeting on March 22nd at 3 p.m. If there are no further comments, questions, have a good birthday. We are done.